My name is Karol Klimczak. I'm an associate professor at Lodz University of Technology, and I'd like to share with you my research ideas for the ACCA-IAAER Scholars Program. In this program, I have the privilege to work with a fantastic mentor, Ken Merkley from Indiana University. Ken has ample experience in large-scale archival studies that he can share to help me bring my research to the next level. That's how the Scholars Program promotes accounting research around the world. Before I tell you about the project, let me just say that I'm located in Łódź. Now that's the only city in Poland with a name that features Polish diacritics in all letters but one. It's right there in the center of the country, not far from Warsaw. Lodz University of Technology itself is housed in historical textile factory buildings dating back to the 19th century. In this presentation, I'd like to show you what the study of financial communication is and what research methods we use. I will use a couple of cases to show you what I mean. Towards the end, I'm sure you'll be as excited as I am about the challenge Ken and I plan to take on in the ACCA-IAAER Scholars Program. This project comes from my interest in how company officers write public reports. What drives their choices? What effects this has on the performance of their business? Once you've seen many reports, you begin to appreciate the complex process of their creation, the dialogue with stakeholders, negotiations that come before. The choices directors make when deciding what and how to write in a report have been studied in the past, of course. They appear to be an outcome of several interrelated processes, which makes identification a challenge. Importantly, the final effects of disclosures depend on the conditions of the report's creation. I use methods from computational linguistics in my research, like this word cloud. It shows typical terms in letters to shareholders. Notice the emphasized terms, all the key, important events and large gains that directors like to write about. That's the standard. That's something stakeholders expect to see. We get a different word cloud if we check what makes some letters stand out from the crowd. That's words to look out for if you want to be alerted of an important development. Investments, financing, strategic change. All of these would be presented in a positive light, of course. Their occurrence is informative, so we use topical lexicons to spot them. Companies adapt their communication to the business cycle, both at the macro and micro levels. It's when times get rough that the way a report is written can influence the future of a company. That's why it's important to study the conditions under which reports are written. Consider Royal Dutch Shell. It's a company that delivers returns mostly through dividend payments, not stock price gains. Many people depend on the dividends for their retirement. The problem is cash flows for the dividends can be tight, especially when the green transition looms. Each company has its own story and challenges that we want to learn about. Together with my team, we spent our lockdown days building corpora in the Polish language, downloading and processing company disclosures. We already made the data available in open access, adding to a growing set of international corpora. The next step is enriching it with features from the business environment. To see how directors manage their communication with stakeholders, for example, we constructed a corpus of CEO letters going back to 2008. Then we analyzed them using corpus linguistics and checked for correlations with financial data. Using cluster analysis, we identified 4 standard types of letters, and we found there are rational reasons for companies to select from among them. Let me reiterate that we take the positivist worldview and study how directors make rational decisions. That's an important distinction because there's literature that takes texts to be a window into the managerial psyche. Their hubris, narcissism, Pollyannism. Still, we find it more compelling to consider reports are an outcome of collective processes. A paper I published with researchers from Wrocław shows, for example, that when directors expect high earnings growth, they are more likely to be positive even if past earnings were disappointing. They're very positive instead if strong future earnings follow a good year. Now, that's rational. In another piece of research, we looked at the recurring themes in the discussion of change plans. We found that managers are extremely positive when addressing shareholders, but their texts are more nuanced when addressing employees, discussing the impact of market forces or technological changes. Again, Shell is an interesting example, as it tries to paint a picture of a bright future where Shell continues to provide energy for global development. All that despite the obvious failures in reducing CO2 emissions and failed attempts at measuring emissions in a way that would favor Shell. In fact, it's continued dividend payments that are the strategic objective. Directors emphasize delivering the necessary cash flows above all else. Something that recent research has looked into is the effect of corporate communication varies depending on who drives the market. Employees who know a lot about their companies are smart, but other retail investors may easily overreact. Trading algorithms may switch mode, much like your GPS points you to an unpaved road so that you save 30 seconds of driving. Identifying the marginal trader is something that we need to do. Overall, some people can be swayed by propaganda in the short run. In the long run, strategic disclosure theory and data show that investors are good Bayesians. They may be swayed when no other timely information is available, but once they have enough knowledge, it's difficult to change their priors. A hype stock such as this one comes down eventually. We plan to study a young market with relatively small companies, with a lot of diversity in communication. In Poland, reports are still written by company staff, not a single IR agency, and we have the data to define communication standards and to track the revolution. The stock market is easily accessible to retail investors, and the special institution of liquidity support creates an interesting dynamic in price discovery. I'm excited to put some new tech to work here, including our financial communication corpus, a cross-linguistic semantic database, and financial lexicons that I've been working on recently. The Scholars program is a great boost, and with the help of my mentor, Ken Merkley, I hope to deliver strong evidence on the effects directors can achieve with their communication strategies. Thank you.